Well, this will be the wingtip section, and the idea is basically, so I rearranged. I'm going to keep the wings the way I had them so I can work on the end. My other thought was to put them back in the rack, but then I kind of have to bend down and do it. This is actually a little more comfortable, and like everything, hopefully it won't take that long, but yeah, right. So the first step is you got to trim all of this down to 3/4. So my thought was to rough cut it. You also have to taper this edge, if I understand it correctly, from 1/8 to 3/4. And I basically just grabbed a bunch of 3/4 inch MDF, and my thought was to lay it all flat like that, trace it, cut it a little bit big with Dremel, shears, grinder, whatever, and then just flat block it, meaning sanding it until I get it to that 3/4 inch level, so I can cut smaller pieces to do the inside, and we'll see how that goes. Alright, so I just had to double check if these little ones get cut out, and the reason I was questioning it is they were not extruded as deep as the other ones. These were over 1 inch deep, and these were literally like right at 3/4, but I'm guessing it's because of the amount of material that they have to pull through that they cannot go that far. But they do need to be cut out. And one thing I noticed is that I have two different materials. This one's smooth ABS, and this has like a texture on it. I know ABS comes in both ways, but not really worried about it, but wish they would match. Not a big deal. And the idea now was to basically use this block, you know, push down and then use an electric grinder and just grind it flush. This is kind of a sacrificial piece, and go all the way around. Problem is, I don't have an electric grinder here. I have no idea where it is. I thought I did. Must have brought it to my shop. So then I'm like, all right, I'll use the air grinder, except all I have is the Scotch pad on there, and I don't have the other one. So I think I'm going to do it the old-fashioned way, because when I first marked these, I marked them rough with the fat tip to be, you know, thicker than need be. So I'll probably go through with the thin tip, mark them, and cut them to the best of my ability with the Dremel tool. Probably should have done that in the first place and saved me this step. Oh well. I'm doing this, but I think it's going to take too long. I'm heading to the shop. I'm going to do this at the shop. Want to come? Well, it's Sunday and we're at the shop, and I figured I'd take the opportunity to show off the shop. If you're into cars, especially Porsches, we have a nice selection there, even though this Model S Plaid is faster. Pretty much every generation, with this one probably being the most valuable one, original 930 turbo. But anyway, this is the wood shop. Here are my wings. The plan is to basically grind that to 3/4 of an inch, and I have more tools here. All right, as always, it was more work than expected. Actually, not really. I think it came out really nice. You see all the lines are right at 3/4, just using 3/4 as a MDF as a guide. And then I started to do, as you can see in the time lapse, I started to do the outside edge, and I got close with the Dremel tool, and then I got impatient, so I decided to run it through the table saw. But I don't recommend doing that if there's too much meat on the outside, because with the big flange on it, you don't get support, and the table saw can chatter and break it. And then also I had this piece of wood on it. It kept a lot of tension pushing it on here. So this is exactly 3/4, and then tension pushing down and against that. So it doesn't deviate, you know, like if this pulls in, it'll obviously be less. The inside pieces, I found this to be helpful. I just cut a whole bunch of odd blocks of 3/4 that contour different corners, nothing scientific. Even this one here that goes in the back. This was very, very thin, but I don't think it really matters. I might neaten it up a little bit. So here we go. Oh, and this is an original slant nose, meaning metal fenders from Porsche. Alright, I got these guys tapered off. So let me just do that. Going from, oops, a little burr on there, like 1/8 inch up to the 3/4, kind of where the last cutout section starts. And then these guys, I just marked, I literally just eyeballed it. I'm gonna try and cut it as best as I can. And it got really faded back here, so kind of the best. All right, I got my snowshoes ready. So cut those off, and now we're gonna do the masking tape trick. Basically put masking tape along this edge. They say to use 3/4 inch. I'm gonna use this blue painter's tape, which is almost an inch. They say no less than 3/4. I'm gonna tape that very close to this edge, then somehow line that up to it, and you're gonna use that reference point to go back onto where you actually wanna cut it to give you the I've been futzing with this for about an hour, grinding, cutting, trimming, grinding, getting my magic marker lines off with some alcohol, grinding, cutting, trimming, fitting, grinding, cutting, trimming, fitting, and it's actually looking really good. I do like it. There's some distortion back here. It's a little bit annoying, and I think I'm gonna take some time and just think about how I'm gonna do this. I'm not sure. I'll do it with the tape. I also think I'm going to flip the wings, because being a high wing, obviously it's more important that the bottom looks good than, or well, more people will see the bottom than the top. And I think I'm going to get that second one up to where I am with this one and call it a day. One thing that I found is, I don't know if you can see it on camera, there's actually a more precise line on the inside. It's a little hard to see, but I'm not sure if that's the line that actually pulls through when they vacuum form it. But so what I did, I got it to this, anywhere from a 1/16 to 3/32 from that line. I took my die grinder and I just got it as close to that as possible, and then flattened it out. That's how I did that one, and I'm going to do that with this one. All right, a few days later, change of scenery. I took the wing off the table and I put it on the rack, and I put it on backwards, but it doesn't look like it hits there, so pretty cool with that. This way I can focus on the bottom. And somewhere along the way I read Randy's response about just riveting that to that shell and then fitting that to it and actually drilling number 40s in there, holes, and riveting it to it. I don't know if I'm gonna do the actual drilling part, but I might look into securing this to this and then trying to fit that. But to get to that point, it's nice having the big flat table and between sanding blocks and actually literally just, sorry, holding the sandpaper and moving the thing on top of it to get any of the high spots out. It's gotten me really close, as you can see, to having still a gap here, which means I got to sand a little more of the high spots up there. So I'm kind of just working it that way and hoping that I can get it to fit, as close as possible, and then try to mate it onto there. I don't know if that'll work, but I'll try it. So I think that fits pretty good. Obviously it pushes it out a little bit because it's not glued, but I like the gap. The contour down here is pretty perfect, and same here, a little bit wide there. I might actually take the tape off and take a look at how it really fits. Now obviously I just have clamps in the middle, so you still have that play without any screws in it, but I think I might actually put the thread shirts in and rivet it in. I'll do the other wing first. Alright, more change of scenery. We move that wing over here. I thought the camera was rolling, but it wasn't. I don't know if you can tell on the video, but I'm really happy how this came out. It's really flat on the table. Comes up a little bit there, but obviously that's also where the aileron comes out. So basically just use some 60 and 80 grit paper. I actually ran it underneath there while holding this. What you don't want to do is distort this, because obviously if you distort it, it'll create tight spots, which you don't want to sand too much off. But assuming its natural shape, so probably sand a little bit more there, get rid of those high spots, but that's the top of the wing, nobody sees that. And yeah. Alright, so after pondering the best way to do this, I think I have a solution. I really like the way they fit. Now the challenge will be to get them on there and tight against the support rib so they actually fit the way they're supposed to. And my plan is to make the jig out of MDF. I'll use the inner support rib as a template, so I'll cut that out of a piece of plywood or MDF, and then I will allow a 1/16. I'll just oversize it, probably with a router bit or something, or maybe even that's the width of the jigsaw blade I'll use to cut it. And I'm going to make that, and the idea is just to basically glue it and then slide this over, and they say to push this in like 50 thousandths, but I won't be able to do that until I get to work. So looking at the strobes, see what's involved in getting those mounted. Back to the wing tips, and I think I'm onto something. I don't know what exactly yet, but I'll make use of this setup somehow. So I cut the MDF outline and it's very useful in a couple of ways. You got to make sure that it doesn't bow, and it can actually help you in sanding off, you know, some of the high spots. Because when I was doing it on the table, obviously the sides flex, so it can distort it. And once I put it in here, I actually noticed that there's a slight difference between the two wings, probably about 1/8 of an inch. So this obviously being the shorter one that has a bigger gap, maybe 3/16 to 1/4 inch. And that one had more like, I don't know, 3/16 gap or to 1/8 of an inch. So I'll go back and forth, and I'll basically just flat block the high spots. Like there's a little bit high spot here. So I think making this jig is very useful to it. I'm actually trying to figure out if I can just make a, you know, legs that come off of here that are 8 1/8 inch long, a board that creates stability this way and also more stability this way. Because if you force this, you know, this can stretch because it's only about 2 inches here. That way you can just put the wing in, cut it, put the template in, the support rib. No, I think you would still flip it the other way. I'm going to put a 1/16 inch spacer just because I have that, which is close to 50 thousandths, and then somehow glue it. I'll let you know what I come up with.